What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to CakeTV Live. I'm Seth Perlstein. To my right is
Brandon Ryan.
And this is the first edition of CakeTV Live. This is NAMM Sessions Part 1. So we know a lot of you guys live all around the world, and we can't thank you enough for joining us today. So awesome. We know it's tough to get to Anaheim every January to get into the NAMM show. So what we wanted to do is bring you the demos that we did at the show into your home or office or wherever you may be watching from now live over the web. So that's what this is. This is going to be the demo that I did at NAMM, plus a little bit more though. At NAMM we were just running X1 Expanded. Today we're running the X1D patch, which we'll announce soon when it's coming out. Keep watching, we'll announce soon. But we're actually running that today. You should be able to see it on screen, and we're gonna be talking about it and going over some of the new features and things like that throughout the demo.
And you didn't have me sitting over your shoulder commentating the entire time either,
Correct,
did you? Yeah.
So there's multiple
it
bonuses.
Should be fun.
Yeah, indeed. So just to outline kind of what we're gonna look at today.
We should probably mention we're here at Center Staging in Burbank at the Roland Artist Relations offices. So, hello world.
Indeed,
from Burbank, all 375 of you or so.
And thanks to Roland for letting us hang out here and do our thing.
Yeah,
very cool. So let's switch over to Sonar so you guys can kind of see the project. So there's two projects we're going to look at today, and we're going to look at music production. I think from two different angles. So the first, we're going to start off with kind of a bare bones project. It's just 7 bars. It's just a couple of instruments, piano, bass, and guitar. And it's quite frankly, it sounds pretty bad, but that's on purpose. So what we're going to do is take this kind of ugly, rough little scratch idea and kind of turn it into something that sounds pretty cool with a lot of like manual sort of editing techniques and things like that.
And this is a pretty good scenario, I think, because people sometimes get tracks that don't sound good, maybe songwriters that just did maybe general MIDI stuff and needed to make it sound better, or there's situations where somebody has just mocked something up and you've got to make it sound better. So I think in lots of cases there's scenarios where you have sort of tracks that are just sort of rough demo tracks that you have to, and maybe you're stuck with them, maybe you can replace some things, but you've got to make the stuff sound better.
Absolutely, and flesh it out into a full production-ready project.
Right.
And then on the back end of the demo, we're going to look at what a complete production-ready project actually looks like, and we're going to do some sort of like more live performance techniques. We're going to play some stuff and record some live automation, record some MIDI and things like that. So kind of, I guess, attacking music production from a couple of the available angles.
Yeah, and also I'm going to be I'm monitoring the conversation here, everybody. So I will try to keep an eye down here and notice some questions, and we'll take some questions along the way. I got a few already lined up that have been asked prior, and so we'll hit a few of those as we go along the way. Let's try to keep Seth on track, though.
We'll do our best to get you guys out there. We know there are going to be a lot of questions, so please bear with us as they come in. And before we get started, I should also mention we're going to look at a couple of the updates and enhancements to the vStudio 700 control surface. There's been some not only bug fixes, but also some new features and some tweaks and compatibility changes. So we're going to look at some of that stuff too to show you guys how this works with the new Modular Pro channel and all that stuff. So let me just start by playing this project for you. And again,
hey, why don't you start with maybe with a save as for a new version?
That's a good idea.
I always like to tell people, I like to follow the good practices of, as you're going along and creating stuff, to do a quick save along the way. It's always good in case you make a mistake or, God forbid, have some kind of trouble.
You never know, we're live, so you'll never know what's going to happen. So knock on wood, rocking and rolling. We should mention, by the way, this is also, X1D is not fully baked yet.
Yep.
It's not released today, so we're running with a pretty much final release, but not quite there yet. So
later on, we will be telling you the final release date, though. So
indeed.
Stay tuned.
Indeed. So check out this project here. Again, it's just piano, bass, and guitar. And again, it's going to sound really bad, but that's by design.
Try not to rap over it.
So I'm going to solo the piano up for you. This is just a very basic, simple, general MIDI acoustic piano. Probably not something you'd want to maybe keep in a final project that you're going to put out there to the public. So let's say you've got this project like you were talking about earlier, like someone brings you a scratch project, or maybe it's just an older project that you started working on multiple years ago, maybe 5, even 10 years ago, maybe before the time where we're at today, where virtual instruments really sound good, and you want to update this project with new sounds and really mix it down. Well, what we can do in X1 is just jump right into the browser, into our instruments list.
This is a feature in X1 Producer Expanded.
And what would you have to do? Let's say we wanted to replace this general MIDI instrument. What would you have to do before X1 Expanded?
Well,
to do
it's something
this?
I've had to do all the time, even going from, let's say, a 32-bit to 64-bit instruments,
Yeah.
or getting tracks from people where it's just a general MIDI instrument or something. You'd have to instantiate, load up the new instrument, take the old MIDI track and reroute it to the new
Right.
instrument, delete the old one, or copy the data over.
You have to move the data,
and then
right.
if you weren't happy, you just had to keep going through that process over and over again.
Right.
So now,
It's so much easier
A
in X1
godsend.
Expanded. Just literally drag and drop whatever plugin you want right onto the existing instrument track. In this case, I'm going to add True Pianos. And there it is. Here's True Pianos ready to go. And you can hear night and day, much, much better. Really nice. It's a physically modeled piano, uses physical modeling, a little bit of samples. The physical modeling adds that nice realistic resonance.
so it's almost like being able to audition and flip through sounds to hear how a MIDI part sounds, but you can
Yeah.
actually audition different instruments.
And it's
just
so
by
much
dragging
deeper
and
than that, right?
dropping.
Because they're actually different instruments. And this
Yeah.
works with any instrument, not just the stuff included in Sonar, but third-party stuff too. This, by the way, as I flip to the advanced interface of True Pianos, this comes with SONAR X1 Producer Expanded. This is the Amber module.
Yeah.
It's one of, I think, 4 or 5 modules that Forefront Technology has made. They made this one specially for us, and if you want, you can upgrade and download extra modules and add them on to
Yeah,
to
they
True
take into
Pianos.
account your status with Amber, and there's
Yeah.
even a new one called Atlantis out, which is really, really nice.
Yeah.
I've been playing with.
Good sounding stuff. So, and it's just a great, really simple interface. Sounds great. And again, updating stuff real quickly. So True Pianos and Replace Synth built in and ready to rock. Another thing I wanted to show you with the window. So we've got, floating plugin windows, obviously, instruments and various edit views. Well, let's say I wanted to manage this somehow. I don't have to minimize it or anything like that. Sonar X1's got a killer feature here called the multi-dock. You can just drop any window, any floating window into the multi-dock. And down here at the bottom of my screen, I've got my console view, my matrix view, and as you can see, I dropped in True Piano. So you can drop in plugins, you can drop in synths. This is a great way to manage windows.
There's a great question that
Sure.
I actually don't know the answer to, and maybe you'll know. So let's start with something really scary.
Okay,
But our
perfect.
friends at Featherlight Studio ask, if your synth is configured for multiple outs, which synth will the drag and drop synth mimic that? Will it patch it? I'm guessing no.
Yeah, I'm guessing it probably won't.
It'd probably only work for the MIDI track or the instrument track.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because when you've got multiple outputs, you're not using an instrument track. So what
Yeah.
we've got here for the piano, this is an instrument track. It's basically a combination of an audio and a MIDI track. And if you look here in my inspector, which I'll explain a little bit in a second, the inspector has an audio tab and a MIDI tab built in. So like on the audio tab of an instrument track, you see a channel strip of the actual instrument for the audio, and then you see the downstream connected bus. In this case, it's connected directly to the master bus. And then in the MIDI tab, you've got like the MIDI volume and pan and all that, and then the other MIDI parameters like input quantize, the built-in arpeggiator, and things like that. So the instrument track is the combination of the audio and MIDI. Now, when you're running a multi-out instrument like Session Drummer or Contact or something like that, you're looking at individual MIDI tracks and individual audio output tracks. So replacing a synth with a multi-out instrument track
A little more
is
complicated.
a little bit different affair.
But something to look at. Good question.
Yeah.
Some people say that sometimes some synths don't go into the multi-dock. I've never seen one that wouldn't go in the multi-dock unless maybe a 32-bit synth that's being bit bridged.
Yeah, that's
wrapped.
the only instance I could see. Let's
think
say
that's the
maybe
answer to that.
you're using like a bit bridged plugin, because those aren't technically floating windows. They run in a separate process, and so it's a separate window. But anything that's native 64-bit that's going to be a floating window, you can just drop it right in.
Yeah.
And what's cool about the multi-dock is, not only does it live here at the bottom of the screen in sort of a small size, but you can expand it with Shift-D to make it full screen with a single click. Shift-D will bring it back. You can make it, go away completely with the D for dock. This is what we call a key cluster. and then bring it back with D again.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I think if you're, I mean, not everybody loves everything, but for me, the key to the multi-dock is D and Shift D.
Yep.
If you're not using D and Shift D, you're not really getting the full capabilities of the multi-dock. And once you sort of get used to that, it also sits real close to Shift F.
Right.
I tend to use Shift F a ton to kind of fit my project,
Yeah, I do
and then
too.
Shift D, so my hand just kind of sits in that spot. And
Indeed. And
kind of a
we've also
nice tip.
updated the access panel on the vStudio 700C to work a little bit better with the multi-dock. So for example, if you've got your multi-dock open like we have here showing the console view, if you hit track, it's going to make the multi-dock disappear, and then you just hit console and it brings it back up again to the same height.
Right.
In the multi-dock, which is pretty cool.
So this is a function of the VS700.
VS700, yeah, the console, right?
Yeah.
And there's also other buttons, like if you hit piano roll, for example, it's going to bring up the piano roll
In the multi-dock.
built in the multi-dock. If you hit track again, it'll make it disappear.
So track on the
back to
VS700
console.
kind of is the equivalent of toggling
Right,
back
with D.
the multi-dock off. you know.
Exactly.
That was a question earlier. I think Pro Music 27 had asked a little bit about some VS700 integration. There's been a bunch of updates.
Yeah.
And that's just some of them is working with that, but also we'll talk about using the Inspector and Pro channel shortly.
Right. So let's just go ahead and we'll just close out our true piano. So
And there's just make sure.
So we've got our synth replaced and ready to rock. Talking about window management, another really cool aspect of window management, I think, is the Inspector and the Pro channel.
Yep.
And so basically, in case you're not familiar, the Pro channel, this is over here in my Inspector. It shows up on every track and bus. It's basically a built-in console strip that's fully modular, EQ, compression, all kinds of dynamics processors in SONAR X1 Producer Expanded. And a really big point of this, I mean, not only do these modules sound good, and we're going to go into the individual modules in a second, but the ergonomics is incredible. So let's say I want to put, an EQ on my piano here. I've already got this EQ kind of preset, and it's kind of tough to really dial in an EQ in a scenario like this. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it anyways over the broadcast, but I mean, if I want an EQ, it's just so easy. I can just turn it on. It's right here at my fingertips, ready to go. There's no, instantiating a plug-in or anything like that. Which is really cool. Now, you guys who are familiar with X1 may notice this EQ looks a little bit different. And we've drastically updated various parts of the EQ now. It's now called the Quad Curve EQ. This is part of X1D for those expanded users. It's free. So we've updated the GUI. You can see the knobs are different colors now. Should be a lot easier to see, add a little bit more life to the visual side of things. You can also see there's parameters are displayed now below the knobs.
It used to be you had to hover over to see, and you can still do that. But having the sort of 24/7 display, and you can type right in there, right?
You can, yeah. So maybe I want to set this exactly to 6K or something like that. Just type it in, boom, locked and loaded. So really easy to use on that front. And then we've updated the graph as well. We've added numerical readouts here to the graph.
Yeah, that was a huge thing. I mean, the graph was somewhat useful, but I think I and a lot of us and a lot of users were feeling like, okay, this EQ sounds great, but it'd be a lot more usable if we had a graph that showed us more information. Right. And this is a huge step in the right direction, if not,
absolutely
making it perfect.
And you'll notice kind of along those lines is the colors in the graph too. So we've got a couple things going on here. You'll notice like this red curve, for example, the colored settings represent the actual setting of the specific band. And then the white line, this is like the cumulative effect of all of those bands. So you've got much better visual feedback in the graph too, whereas before it was just like a single blue sort of. Yeah,
the colors make a huge difference. The kind of cumulative resultant EQ with the white line makes a huge difference. I mean, I think that everyone has always really appreciated the sound of the
Absolutely.
the new EQ.
Yeah.
But this really makes it, kind of ups the level of usefulness, I think.
And speaking of the sound, we've added a fourth mode. We've added a completely new EQ mode. So now this, quad curve, it's a 4-mode EQ. And we've also relabeled and renamed the existing modes. So G-type, this was modern. So we call it G-type now. This kind of resembles a classic British console that gives you sort of a warm sound from a classic 4000 series British console. Then we've got E-type, and you can see the actual curves change. E-type is from a different era from the same company's console, but it's a little bit more of a clinical sound. So with the G-type, if you're doing some coloration or that sort of type of EQ.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah,
maybe on
G-type is-
instruments, you'd use it for something like that. E-type would be great if you're maybe carving out a little more of a resonance or something in
Yeah,
in drums.
E-type is basically like totally manual. The G-type mimics, there's different eras of a couple of different British consoles that really is more for like tonal balancing. So,
Yeah.
you know, when you tweak the gain, you're getting a wider bandwidth. E, you're getting a lot less. So those are very, very useful. And then we have the pure mode.
Yeah, pure mode is an extremely gentle mode when you're boosting and cutting. So you can see it's it's nice and wide. Well, I can't really see it here in this example, but the point for pure is it's really great on buses and or as like a mastering EQ. So it's got a very high dependency for the gain Q ratio.
It's kind of like an extreme version of the G-type in a way.
Yeah, it's an extreme G.
Great
you
for
could say
buses,
that.
particularly good for a master bus, I
Yeah.
think, but also nice
Yeah,
for like
and
vocal buses and stuff.
Indeed, really any bus. And then there's
Yeah.
the new mode, which is hybrid. Now this is really interesting. So if I were to boost this, you can see it's a nice wide, gentle boost, and that's kind of nice if you're adding some color on an EQ when you're boosting. But when it cuts, you get this really narrow, clinical cut.
So it kind of acts like a G-type when you're boosting and an
Yeah.
E-type when you're cutting, which in a
Right.
lot of cases is really the best of both worlds for an EQ. So this hybrid mode, I think a lot of people will find themselves using it probably more often than not, especially on tracks.
Yeah,
It's really
absolutely.
useful.
And a lot of people have said that this type of curve is what a famous classic valve EQ out there does.
Yep.
So you've got some large format British style EQ built in, sort of a transparent EQ with pure, and then like a sort of a vintagey valve style EQ with the hybrid.
Yeah. Now, so we're getting some questions,
Yeah.
people asking about ACT and the Pro channel.
Sure.
Have there been any changes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Specifically with the vStudio 700C, not so
Yeah.
much in general, but mainly with the vStudio 700. So
I mean, ACT already works with the Pro channel.
Right.
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 But it's been enhanced a bit, especially with the 700C in X1D.
Correct. So some of the cool things you can do, because and I should preface this actually before I go into that, is to mention that the Pro channel is fully modular, and signal flow goes top to bottom. So
Yeah, somebody had asked why is the gate on the bottom, and that's because in this particular example, although
Yeah.
maybe not very common, and you'll get to that, I know, is the gate is last in the chain.
Correct. But if you want it first in the chain, you just drag it right to the top.
Right.
And then maybe you want compression or maybe you want EQ before compression. It's completely modular. Totally up to you how you want. It's all drag and droppable. And in fact, the Modular Pro channel supports third-party modules and additional modules. So I can add the soft tube saturation knob, which actually comes with X1 Producer Expanded.
Yeah.
And maybe I want saturation before my gating. Just drag it right to the top. And notice too, I'm using my mouse wheel, by the way. So if you run out of screen real estate, you can scroll the Pro channel with your mouse wheel. You can also collapse modules.
Yeah, so that really
expand
helps
modules.
people with their vertical
Yeah.
real estate, things like that.
Absolutely. So to get back to the ACT question of how it's been enhanced and whatnot with the vStudio 700, so the EQ button now, I know it might be hard to see on the little PIP, but EQ button in my channel strip control on the vStudio 700 console now basically controls puts you in control of the Pro channel modules. And you can hit Command Page to scroll back and forth between the different modules. And you can see on the top of the module, the little access bar. Now I'm controlling my 4000 series channel compressor. Scroll up and it's going to automatically map out to the EQ and scroll up to the 4000 gate, etc. So really easy to just move between the different modules, and it works with any module, and it's going to map out automatically. Now that aspect hasn't changed; it's always been there as far as the Pro channel goes. Now maybe you're not using a vStudio 700C, maybe you're using like a Roland A Pro or even like a third-party controller, because ACT works with basically anything. As long as you just use your mouse, you click on a module, it's going to automatically map out and control that individual module. Click on the gate, and it's going to control that. So that actually hasn't changed at all, but there's been some enhanced functionality in the 700. A couple other really cool things actually with the 700 too, like with the sends button, you've always been able to control sends built in on the track. We don't have one here now, but if you wanted to say insert a send onto the track, now you can hit Command Send, and it's going to open up the Insert Send Assistant. And from here, you can like automatically create a new bus and name it and patch an effect and all that stuff. So a lot of different.
Yeah, so a lot of new stuff on the VS700.
A lot of new stuff, indeed, indeed. So we've got our piano track kind of ready to go, and kind of talked about some Pro Channel stuff. I think next I want to add some drums to the project.
Somebody was asking about
sure.
two instances of
Sure.
EQ.
Sure.
I think that's something probably on the table for later on.
Yeah.
Currently, you can't add two versions of the EQ that we have. Now, if you do have the soft tube
Right.
bundle, you can actually add their EQs in multiple numbers. So that's another way to do it. But we realized that would be a nice thing to be flexible. The other thing, if you did want to cut before the Pro Channel, would be to drop in like a Sonitus EQ or something in the effects bin, make the Pro Channel post effects bin.
Right.
And you could use kind of you'd have a filter prior to the Pro Channel.
Yeah, it's important to point out, if I go back to my channel strip here, that the Pro Channel can be a pre or post effects bin. So you can see that on the actual console strip, so before or after effects bin, which is cool.
Some people just missed a couple of the VS700 things as we had a little broadcast
Sure,
problem. But
sure.
But just real quickly, can you just recap without going over, just very, very briefly? So with the VS700 now, we've got the ability to flip through all of the Pro Channel modules, right?
Right, so you can Command Arrow to scroll to any of the modules.
Backwards and forwards, or up and down, as the case may be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then
you can also Command Send is going to open the Insert Send Assistant.
bring up sends, right?
Yep.
Right.
And I should also mention too that all of the modules here, they all have new mappings for each Pro Channel module. Before it was kind of all over the place, but now you'll notice like knob 1 here controls threshold, 2 controls range, 3 release, just how you see it in the interface. So we've made custom, really nicely, really well thought out mappings for each.
And you
Pro
can
Channel
also
module as well.
you can also not necessarily basically activate a bus as well.
You can
now
you
with
can.
the new.
That's really cool. So if you switch over to buses and hit select, it'll actually activate the bus. Yeah, and that's a nice little.
Well, thanks for
neat little
recapping that.
touch.
Hopefully,
Yeah, for sure.
people get that about the VS700.
Yeah.
And here we're using a combination of VS700 and A800 Pro, and you can actually use both as control surfaces and controls. Seth and I both do this in our studios, and they're a great combo. Either one on its own is great, but the combo is also particularly nice.
Yeah, you can. And what's great about the A Pro, one thing I love about it is the transport is on the left side. So if you're working with your mouse in your right hand and your transport, controlling a transport with your left hand.
Right, exactly.
Playback.
Be kind of a transport on both sides.
That sort of thing. And then if you've got your 700, then you've got, your jog wheel and just kind of much more in-depth control.
Yep.
Which is really, really cool. But you were talking about the EQ as well. Someone was asking about 2 EQs in the Pro Channel.
Yeah.
And I brought up the soft tube focusing EQ real quick too. It's
Focusing EQ is great.
Worth mentioning. This is an awesome EQ. Got like built-in high and low pass filters. But so we've got the third-party soft tube bundle that's available for the Pro Channel as well. You can check that out on the website, and you actually get the VST versions and the Pro Channel versions in the bundle, which is pretty cool. So
yeah, so you have the flexibility of the VST versions if you want, to mix and match with other, but having the ergonomics of the Pro Channel there is a big thing. Have we talked about that?
Ergonomics of the
save
Pro
that.
Channel, yeah, no, we've talked about that. I mean, it's huge. Just being able to have instant access here. And in fact, we'll get a little bit deeper into that in just a second.
Yeah.
But let's move on to some drum stuff.
Okay.
So I want to add some drums to the project here, and I've got a couple of drum tracks here in my drums folder. Now, folders are great. I love using folders. I'm sure this is a small project, by the way. We're looking at maybe less than a dozen tracks. I mean, myself, a lot of you guys, 30, 40, 50, 100 tracks. Organizing this stuff in folders is just huge. And I've got a couple of drum tracks here in this drum folder. And I've also, got some bass and guitar. I've got
And there's a
some
nice
matrix
little difference.
Yeah, you guys can see this if you follow where my mouse
Yeah,
is.
so in X1, we changed folders. There was no indention. Upset a number of people. I think a lot of us wanted the indentions back. So as you can see in the X1D update, indents come back for everybody who updates to X1D, and I think it's a welcome addition or retraction, as the case may be.
Absolutely, it's certainly a sight for sore eyes if you will. So
Yeah.
definitely a good thing. So to add some drum loops into this project, just go right back into the browser. Now you saw us drag in true pianos at the beginning of the demo from the browser. What's great about the browser is you can drag and drop anything, instruments, effects. Here we're going to look at dragging some loops. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've got content, loops, MIDI tracks, projects, kind of strewn in various folders all over my system and across different drives. And in fact, you might even have content like on a network attached storage.
Yeah, that's a big point. Is not keeping everything locally. A lot of people have multiple computers or a network attached storage system,
Right.
which is great for backing up projects or keeping giant loop libraries that you might want to access and just import into
Yeah.
a song. And when you have access to all this in the browser, but when you save that as a location, you're not sort of confronted with, well, is this local or is this not local? It's
Right.
just a location for stuff.
So what we've done, the way we've conquered this sort of common scenario is we've added this feature called preset content locations to the browser. And we've included a number of the content locations for the various pieces of content that come with Sonar. So these will take you directly to a specific folder, like here's all my MIDI groove clips, here's all my Rex loops, various sample content, but I've created a custom folder on this system where I've got a custom loops. And again, you can save any folder on any drive, even network attached, in the browser here with the custom preset location. You can name them and all that stuff. So really handy system for accessing data that you use a lot.
Yeah.
And previewing loops is just so simple. Click on it, it's going to play. Click in the browser, it'll stop playing. And in fact, I've got our browser here routed to a bus I've called Preview, and you can route the audio output of the browser to any bus in your project or any hardware output on your audio interface. And I've got it routed down here in the bottom right corner of my screen. If we can maybe just check that out real quick. To the bus labeled Preview, and that gives me dynamic volume control over whatever I'm listening to.
For those of you who have no volume control of the browser, you actually do just by routing it to a preview bus.
Yep.
If you don't have a template already that has a preview bus, you should alter your normal template to include a preview bus. It's great. You can mute and solo the metronome. You can turn it up and down. You can do this while recording, or you're recording a vocalist or an artist or something.
Right.
You have full control of it from a surface.
Right.
It's a great little thing. A lot of people, I think, just don't think about, but it's handy.
And what's common with loops is a lot of loops are produced really hot. Mm-hmm. And obviously you're not typically mixing, at a super hot level. You might be mixing to like -6,
And you can even throw a compressor
-12.
or a limiter on the thing.
Exactly.
Too,
So let's say maybe you're playing your project back, and then you got your preview loop, and the drum loop is super loud. You probably can't even hear me now. So you just go right to your bus, pull your preview bus down, and kind of get a better feel of what the previewed loop is going to sound like in the mix, which is kind of cool.
Right.
So in adding it to the project is just as simple. Just literally drag and drop it right over. But what's cool is that you guys can see this vertical white line here. That's called the aim assist. It's called aim assist, and what it does is it just shows me where I'm going to drop the piece of data into the track view. You'll notice it's snapping to measure. That's because aim assist conforms to the global snap setting. Now up here, if you follow my mouse to the top of the screen, I've got my global snap setting set to measure. So this aim assist will lock right into the measure. And what's cool about that is I can drop it right on measure 1 without being off by like a quarter of a beat or something like that, and then having to manually slide it over. It's just boom, right there on
Hey,
measure 1.
we should just touch on something. I'm seeing a lot of questions, just people asking about the X1D update in general.
Sure.
We'll get to the release date at the end. We'll keep you guys hanging. But
Yeah.
just so everybody knows, the X1D update we're looking at is free for all users. It applies to people who use Essential, Studio, Producer, Expanded. Expanded users get a few other things, like the EQ and some things that are only pertinent to Expanded.
Right.
But it's a free update for everybody. It patches any version of X1C, any flavor of Sonar. And we'll tell you when it's going to be available shortly, but it's free for all users as a download.
Yeah.
Just to get that out of the way.
So that's good. That's good info to have. So back to the drum loop. What's great about drum loops is, or not just drum loops, but any loop really, is that they're pre-processed, they're pre-produced, they're ready to go. You can grab the edge of it and drag it out, repeat it as many times as you want. And what's cool too is they'll match any tempo. So if we're at like 100, it'll sync up, play to any tempo. Just turn that down a little. Or if you're maybe doing like a, a slower tempo kind of jam, it'll just sync up and lock into that. There you go. Doing some super down tempo stuff. So I mean, loops are really cool for that, especially for the tempo changing ability. Speaking of tempo changing, let's say you're doing, for argument's sake, like a really slow tempo project, like this is 60, or maybe you're doing like a section of your song, like in halftime or something like that, and you need to record in a part. Well, we've made that a little bit easier with the X1D update with a lot of enhancements to the metronome.
Basically, at slow tempos, quarter notes just aren't enough.
You're not going to cut it. No,
yeah.
You can't. It's hard to play.
Because it goes click, click. Well,
right.
You can press
in fact,
that.
I'll play it. So if we just turn the metronome on.
Click, click.
Right, that's just tough to keep in time. So you're going to need to be able to change your metronome.
That'd be hard to do
settings
it.
and,
Tick,
exactly,
or something
exactly. And before you couldn't do that in X1D, you're going to be able to do that. And you can also now access the metronome settings directly just by clicking the metronome icon in the control bar.
That's handy.
Yeah, and it's going to take you right to the metronome page of the Unified Preferences.
Small
view.
refinement, but nice.
And so not only that, we've added this beat subdivision, right? So click on half notes, for example. Let's turn on our metronome during playback. So now you can actually play that little chunkin' guitar part during a halftime or a slow tempo song, which is pretty cool. Not only that, but maybe for whatever reason, maybe you want like a triplet metronome. And it'll do that too.
Yeah, triplets, because maybe doing a triplet part or something. Sometimes
Exactly.
it's just nice for the feel of the music.
Exactly. So those are some big updates.
And there's been a lot of, and you may have said this, I might
Yeah.
have been distracted, but a lot of bug fixes and things for the metronome.
A lot of bug fixes in the metronome.
Yeah.
I mean, not to go too deep into it, but
But the developers dug deep into it.
They dug into it,
They
right?
did.
Thankfully,
So you don't have
that's
to.
not our job.
Yeah.
And you won't have to in the future either, right? Like drifting metronome issues,
Yeah.
or not being able to. Not having like a proper lead in if you're doing a time signature change in your song, like all of that has been fixed. It's
right.
completely rock solid now.
Yeah.
So that's some good news. So bug fixes and feature updates for the metronome. So,
Thank you, Cakewalk
which is
developers.
pretty cool. Yeah, devs rock on that one. So good stuff.
Yeah,
there.
so there's a feature, been around for a long time, metronome, probably
Yeah.
since the beginning of time.
Yeah,
Dog
yeah,
time.
yeah.
And there is a pretty major enhancement.
Kind of one of those basic bread and butter
Yep.
things.
And that's something everybody's going to get, even if they're not
Yeah.
expanded users.
Right.
They're going to get that.
Right.
Okay.
So back to the loop thing. So we mentioned, again, loops are awesome because you can roll them out and play them at any tempo. And speaking of which, let me just get this back to 100. But what kind of sucks about loops is that, well, that's what they are. They're loops. So they just repeat over and over and over and over again, and you can't really do a whole lot about them. But I'm going to show you guys some techniques in Sonar to be able to make variations of loops, kind of breathe some new life into canned content. So what's cool is if I double click here on a loop, it just opens it up automatically in the multi-dock in our loop construction view. And you can see in the loop, you can see the slice markers and things like that. And it's great. You can just click on a slice. It'll play back automatically for you. That's actually an option, by the way. Auto slice preview here, an option. So make sure that's on, and you can preview the slice automatically. And you can also adjust things like volume. So this yellow line, this is basically a volume automation line. And there's also available automation for pan and for pitch as well. But we're just going to do some volume here. So what I'm going to do is just play the loop back and then pull out some of these grace notes here. Just pull that all the way down. Maybe this open hi-hat. Some of these grace note snares. Get rid of this one.
And this is a feature that's been around in Sonar for a while. I think having the multi-dock is particularly nice in here. But this is kind of something, you rediscover things over time. Something you and I kind of sort of rediscovered, randomly before our NAMM demonstrations. Because, for me, I was trying to match a sequence to a loop and just wanted the snare out of it. And in this case, you're doing this because too many times kicks will flam or snares are a little off. Or you like part of the loop, but you don't want the rest. And this is so great for that.
Kick from one loop, a snare from another loop.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm just removing some of the snares and hi-hats that I don't want from the loop. And then what I'm going to do back up here in my track view is just a little copy and pasting, make a new instance of it. And double-clicking the new instance of it opens that up in the LCV, the loop construction view. And for this one, I'm just going to reverse these kicks. So I'm going to pull this one out, double-click this one to bring that back in, and then copy and paste a third instance, open that up, and bring this kick back in so that both of these ending kicks are there, and then bring this Grace Note snare in and bring the open hi-hat back in. Let me play this for you though, because we're going from polar extremes to unity gain all the way to off, but you can also use this to subtly remix individual slices in a loop. So as this comes around, listen to the open hi-hat, should be pretty loud, but you can just pull it down by 5, 6 dB. So a nice little built-in remixing tool as well for just removing stuff, which is pretty cool. So now I've got these 3 variations up here. Let's have a listen to this. 3 variations of the loop. Now you should be able to hear, I don't know if you guys can hear this over the broadcast, but you should be able to hear that there's some built-in, there's still some some noise left over from the slices that have been removed.
Yeah, it could be smoother.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, and again, this goes back to the ergonomics of the Pro channel, just grab my expander gate, just turn it right on instantaneously, and just tighten that loop right up. And it took literally 3 seconds just to mouse over here, turn my expander gate on. So easy. You don't have to deal with a floating plugin or instantiate anything like that.
Yeah,
so.
even as great as the drag and drop browser is, it's still go to browser, find the plugin, take it, drag it in. Yes, you could make a template where every single thing had a gate in it, but are you always using that template? Is every project you receive have that template?
Right.
The built-in gate's super handy for that.
Absolutely. And so there's also, we looked at the SSL 4000 compressor. We've also got a PC76 type FET compressor built into the Pro channel. Fast attack, so better for percussion. Just do some real super quick and dirty compression. Nothing too fancy, but just so you guys know it's there. There's that classic FET style compression built in, as well as the 4000 style compression too. So this loop, I mean, it's sounding better, but I want to add some more stuff to it. So let's go back to the browser and just drop in drum loop 2. And again, that aim assist just makes it really easy to drop it right on measure 1. Now I'm going to do a little bit different thing with this. We're just going to roll this, repeat it 3 times, open this up in the multi-dock and the loop construction.
Great how the multi-dock just always updates to whatever you double click on, it just pops up. I wanted to just interject something real quick, and I hate to take a track. A lot of people are asking if this is going to be available to see later because maybe some of it goes too fast, or you knock at the door or something.
Yeah.
We are recording this. It will be broadcast and available for people to view later on at your leisure. Don't worry.
Yeah, it should be hopefully up tomorrow, maybe Monday.
Yep.
But it'll definitely be up on CakeTV for sure. So this loop is a little bit different. I'm going to use this loop. I'm going to harvest the hi-hats and the snares from this one. So it's taking me just a moment. I'm just going to pull out
beat harvesting.
Beat harvesting. Pull out all the kick drums.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, I heard. I don't know. I've heard it's actually pretty common in the Midwest, especially around in the fall season, like October.
The beat harvest.
The beat harvest. Yeah. So you can hear we just got the hi-hats and the individual snares from this guy. Now, hopefully you can hear this. You should still be able to hear some residual low end from the kicks that used to be there. And to get rid of that, I can just go right over to my EQ.
It's that little boom, boom.
Yep, and just turn on a high-pass filter, set that to like 200 or something. And just instantaneously, oh, you know what? Because actually we're previewing in this, which is routed through our preview bus. So let me go up to my track.
Somebody
view.
asked earlier what the filters looked like in the Pro channel.
Oh,
and,
awesome.
Here you go.
Let's talk about that now. So let me play this. We're going to reset this and play this actually in the track view. So here's our high-pass filter. And it's great because you've got variable slope from 6 dB all the way to 48 dB. So you can get a super, you can basically do a DJ style kill with the filters. Same thing with the low pass. If you set it all the way to 48 dB, just completely kill it. But in this case, we'll just set it to like 200 or so. Just get some of that residual sort of low end. And actually this loop is sounding a little bright to me, so I'm going to set one of these bands to a shelf. This band 4 and band 1, you can change these to be either bells or shelving filters. And I'll just set it to a shelf to like, 8K, something like that, and just cut that by a few dB. And then bring in loop number 1. You can hear the loops. They work pretty well together, but they're not exactly synced up. And I really want to lock them in. I really want to tweak the timing of them so they're 100% on beat. And we're gonna do a little technique I call groove matching via audio snap. So we're going to take drum loop 1 here, extract the groove from it, and apply it to drum loop 2. Now, before we can do that, we need to turn these loops that we've edited just into normal wave files. And it's so easy in Sonar, just right-click, bounce to clip. And what it does is it just bounces and applies those edits, creates a new clip almost instantaneously. You don't have to wait for any offline rendering or real-time rendering or anything like that. It does it as fast as your system can handle. In this case, our HP i7 system, it's more or less instantaneous. So now that these are just regular old wave files, we can do 24-bit, 32-bit, 64-bit wave files, by the way. Now that these are just regular wave files, we can use audio snap. And I'm going to do that on multiple tracks. Now, for those of you who are familiar with X1, you probably know about our quick grouping features. And we've got a lot of quick grouping enhancements in the free X1D update. Now, a lot of those enhancements, which maybe I'll show you a little bit down the road, they're based on kind of the original quick group feature that we updated in X1. So it's so cool. You can select multiple tracks. And as long as you hold control, whatever you do to one track, it does it to all of the tracks that are selected. So if I solo one track, it'll solo all of them. If I mute one track, it'll mute all of them. And you can also use that with the edit filter. And the edit filter basically allows you to show and hide various types of automation, like volume automation, pan automation, clip automation.
That's something people miss a lot,
like
that it's easy to change the edit filter setting for multiple tracks of time using quick groups.
Absolutely. And in this case, if we show audio transients, it's going to turn on audio snap across these 2 tracks at the same time. Now I'm going to zoom in for you so you can see this. What audio snap does, basically, and I'll just blow this track up. By the way, if you double click in an empty space in a track, this is really cool. You can go to a full size in the track view, back to the small size. That's pretty cool. So I like to do that when I'm working on like a single track. And so
real quickly, just a couple people asked about system specs, what we're using. So it's an HP i7, maybe a 3, I don't know, a 2.8 or something. It's a quad core.
Yeah, quad core with hyper-threading.
It's not like a Sandy Bridge or anything. It's a Z210, and we're using Octacapture as an audio interface, Roland Octacapture. And we're running it, I think, 96 samples.
96 samples, 2.2 milliseconds input latency, and we've got our 700C console and
700C and 800 Pro.
800 Pro. Yeah.
So I think that gives everybody system specs since they're asking about that.
And Windows 7 64-bit. I think there's 8 gigs of RAM or something in here.
Yeah.
A couple drives.
Yeah, 8 gig of RAM. Yeah. Okay.
Onward. Yeah. So with audio snap, so what audio snap does in a nutshell, there's a lot of uses, but kind of the most upfront use is what it does. It assigns these markers here to the transients in the audio, and it allows you to move these transients around and adjust the audio just like it were MIDI. In fact, you'll notice it's locking to the measure, so it'll actually lock into the snap value. So if you turn snap off, you'll be able to freely move the transients around, and you can lasso multiple transients and stuff like that, and do this across multiple tracks as well. So kind of lets you manipulate audio here just like it were MIDI. If you will, which is kind of cool. So, but what we're going to do here, I'm going to open up my audio snap palette. This is sort of the control bar just for audio snap, if you will, a little floating toolbar. You can access it just by clicking in the audio snap track or hitting A on your keyboard. If it's gone, you just hit A, it'll come back, which is cool. It's got this threshold setting. We'll just adjust the threshold. This will let you assign markers to transients based on their audio level. We'll just set that all the way up here, and I'm going to but make the track smaller so you can see in just a moment what I'm going to do to extract the groove. Well, I'm going to just hit the extract groove button, and when I do, we'll see a bunch of these dotted black lines show up. So I'm going to hit it right now, and you should see all of these dotted pool markers. These are global pool markers which have been created from the transients on this audio track, and you should be able to see that some of these transients here on the drum loop track 2 don't quite line up with these pool markers. So what I'm going to do here is go to drum loop 2 and click apply groove, and I'll do that in just a moment. And when I do this, you'll see these transients should snap in. So we'll do this right now. boom, and those, oh, you know what? Because we need to change the threshold. So let's do this one more time. Extract groove, go to track 2, tweak the threshold all the way. There you go. So now
we're getting
markers.
all the beats regardless
Exactly.
of the level.
Exactly. And then we'll apply groove, bam, and it locked in.
Yeah.
So now
Awesome.
we've got a groove
And all
that sounds like this.
non-destructive, totally non-destructive, can be undone if need be.
So totally, completely, 100% locked in. And so this is, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of things you can do with this groove matching technique. I mean, obviously we stole the groove of one loop, applied it to another, but you can also, you know, if you've got like a favorite song or something like that you like the groove of, just import the audio into Sonar, and then use Audio Snap to extract the groove of that and apply it to the tracks in your project, which is kind of cool. So,
Yeah, that's another thing. It's not always about fixing time, but about lifting grooves and applying them to other things. That's such a huge thing about Audio Snap.
Absolutely.
It's really useful.
And another really common feature for this is locking in a bass guitar to a kick drum or to just a drum track in general. And that's what we're going to do next. So I've got this bass guitar sound here. This is a Dimension Pro, a soft synth that comes with X1 Producer, of course. About 2,500 different patches, sort of a meat and potatoes sampling synth. So let me just play this for you guys. Sort of a basic acoustic bass sound. So you can hear it's kind of in time, but not exactly in time. So what we're going to do here, it's kind of a similar operation to what we did before. The difference is when you apply the groove to a MIDI clip, well, first we need to get that groove back. So let's open up our palette again and extract the groove. It's real simple. You just right-click, but you can see before we right-click, you can see the MIDI notes here are way off of the actual pool markers from the transient. So you right-click in the MIDI clip, choose Quantize to Pool, and what you get is this little options window. And this is actually really, really cool, because sometimes maybe you want to quantize to the groove all the way, or maybe just part of the way.
Yep.
And so what's cool is that's the strength. So maybe I want it to quantize, 70% of the distance from the MIDI note to the pool marker. So, you can change your quantize strength, you can change your window. That's like how much it sees a window around the marker of what it sees in the MIDI note. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and when I do, you'll see these MIDI notes lock right into these markers right now. You see those change, and now we've got this. So totally locked in right on those kicks and those snares. Yeah, completely dialed in. So just some really cool uses, I think.
Pretty easy once you know how.
Yeah, of extracting a groove and applying a groove, and you can get really creative and it's especially great with loops. Different loop libraries. Maybe you're using a loop from one library, a loop from another library, and the grooves don't quite match. Well, here you go. This is a way to do it.
And with the pool markers and all of the transient markers, kind of really easy to visually see again what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so let's see what we've got here. Let's add our piano in and see where we're at. All right, so sounding a little bit better. Let's add in this rhythm guitar part. This is kind of cool. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and just unsolo all the tracks here in our global solo unsolo button that we've had that feature for years. So this, by the way, this is going to sound terrible, but this is, again, by design. So that's actually all messed up. That is
the best track I've ever heard anyone ever play.
No kind of good. So we're going to do replace synth again. And again, it's so easy, just right in my browser. And we're going to use Dimension Pro for this guy. Just drag and drop it right onto the instrument track. It's going to load Dimension Pro right in there. I can open it up. And I'm going to load in one of our guitar patches. Now, you guys, I know a lot of you guys are guitar players. Please forgive me. I'm not a guitar player. So when I want guitar parts in my projects...
I forgive you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So when I need guitar parts in my projects, because I mostly use soft synths, I've kind of got to fake it. And there's some ways.
But a lot of people do.
Yeah,
I mean, this
absolutely.
is realistic. Yes, we all would say, yes, get a guitar player.
Yeah.
Yes, hire a guitar player. It's not always realistic. Just like it's not always realistic to get a drummer or hire a drummer or go learn to play drums to play your drum track.
Certainly. And I'm not suggesting this is a replacement for a real guitar player, because it's
No.
certainly not. But it's just it's a cool production technique. So what I'm going to do is load up our Les Paul Natural Sound in Dimension Pro. And this is just step one in a multi-step process of getting, I think, kind of a reasonable sort of rhythm guitar part. So let's have a listen. So it's totally dry DI'd electric guitar. And if I open up, I'll double clip my clip here, and you can see in my piano roll down in the multi-dock. Let's just zoom in here for you guys so you can see.
And that's Dimension Pro playing that little.
That's Dimension Pro, yeah. So you guys can see that each of these MIDI notes in the chords, obviously I played these in on a keyboard by hand. So the timing of these MIDI notes, they're all completely starting at the same time. Now, obviously, real guitar is strummed, and so inevitably what you're going to get is a little bit of distance between the notes that you play on a chord on a guitar. And to simulate that, we're going to use Cal, or Cakewalk application language. So if you go to Process and run Cal, or hit Control F1.
He's using Cal.
I am using Cal. No one thought I'd go here, but I'm going here, and we're going here all the way. These are basically scripts, like built-in scripts. And there's all kinds of them that can create chords out of single notes, different kinds of chords and things like that. And there's a really cool one in here that I like to use called Strum It. And this allows you to separate the notes in a chord by any number of MIDI ticks, and I think we'll choose 15 just for good measure. And it also lets you alternate upstrokes and downstrokes. So just to show you guys what that would look like, let's choose 2 to alternate up and down. And you can see now, if we zoom in again, that we've got a little bit of spacing here, and it's actually reversed on the next chord. So if we play it, we have this.
So we've got more of a strummed chord. We still don't have the tone yet, but
Right.
we've got the strummed kind of very dry kind of guitar sound.
Right. So to get the tone, which is kind of the final step in the process, we're going to use Effects Chains 2.0. So you saw us drag and drop in, synths, and we've drag and dropped in loops and all sorts of things. You can also drop in effects. And one of the coolest kinds of effects is an effects chain. Basically, an effects chain is kind of like a preset of a group of effects. And we include a lot of them with X1 Expanded, and we've updated it to Effects Chains 2.0 and Expanded, and in X1D, we've taken it one step further and included what we call a mod matrix and also touch learn. So let me show you guys that. This is arguably my favorite feature of X1D. And one of these guys, we're going to go with a room with a view, and it's just so easy. And you can do this with any plugin, by the way, any effects chain, just drop it right under the track. There you go, and it'll load up, and you can see it. Now, what's awesome about this Effects Chain 2.0 is, again, it's got this custom graphical user interface. Now, at the bottom of the effects chain, these are the individual plugins that are in the effects chain. So I can open them up if I want to. I can edit them individually. Here's Guitar Rig, big old giant interface that it has, and tempo delay, and multi-voice chorus flanger. So these are the 3 effects that are in this particular effects chain. And this is a preset, by the way, that comes with X1 Expanded. Now, what's cool about this effects chain itself is that you can assign any control from any of these effects to the GUI on the effects chain, and that's what I've done. So if you guys check out this studio reverb in Guitar Rig, the red module in Guitar Rig, as I move the knob that's labeled Verb Mix in the effects chain, it actually moves the wet dry control in the reverb in Guitar Rig. And if I move the delay mix knob on my effects chain, it's going to move the mix knob up here on the blue delay plugin up there. So you can assign any control to any knob or button in this effects chain. And in fact, what's cool about that is I can just have all these windows closed, and I don't have to keep multiple windows open, and just assign the vital controls that I really want to tweak out right here from a single GUI, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it makes it like this just monstrous multi-effect.
Yeah.
That's totally customizable.
Absolutely. And in fact, customizability goes pretty far. You can even customize the user interface. There's different background images. You can load your own bitmaps.
Pictures of your dog, pictures of your kids, zebra stripes.
Whatever you like, absolutely. Into the background here, you can customize like the buttons. You can customize the images of the rotary encoders and change, the color of the text and the labels. Totally customizable interface.
Let me just address something real quick that
Sure.
just keeps coming up over and over again. Is asking about vvocal.
Yeah.
vvocal, since the last update, which I think was 1.5 or something, hasn't seen any updates since then. We're not going to see any updates in X1D. Next major version of Sonar, we'll have to just stay tuned. I can't say anything specific about that.
Yeah.
We will be addressing, we realize obviously that vocal pitch and timing, these things are super important in a DAW, and we're going to be focusing on those things as we go. But a vvocal update imminent, not imminent.
Okay, back to the regularly sanctioned programming. So that's just kind of the basics of FXChange 2.0. Now what we've done in the X1D update is taken it one step further. So for example, I'm going to open up the tempo delay again and just keep this up here. So let's say you want to add multiple knobs to across plugins to a single knob in an FXChange. You can do that now. So right click and choose edit control, and you get what's called the mod matrix. And you can choose any destination here in the mod matrix from any plugin in the effects chain. And let's say maybe want to add a second destination from Guitar Rig or something like that. Now you'll notice this Guitar Rig has tons and tons and tons of parameters to choose from. So scrolling through an endless massive list might be headache inducing. So we've added a feature called Touch Learn, which is really similar to Act Learn, kind of this basic same basic properties.
And a lot like the assignable controls in the synth rack.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say I want to add maybe mix and feedback to this one individual knob. So it's real easy. Just click a Learn knob, and then just move the knobs you want to assign to it, and then click Learn knob again. It's going to give you a little window. Just click Yes, and now you can control multiple knobs with multiple controls with a single knob in the effects chain. And if you right click and choose Edit Control again and work in the mod matrix, now you can assign manual start and end points, and you can also invert them. So let's say maybe I want the mix to go one way and the feedback to go the opposite way. We'd say maybe start here at like 80 and end at like 10. This is basically like manually just inverting them, which is pretty cool. By the way, you can name the controls too.
So you can name this sort of multi-control.
Right.
That's doing multiple things.
We'll call it tweak or something like that. And
Ultra tweak.
You can see the name. So now the knobs work inversely, which is pretty cool. Now one step further, you don't have to manually enter the start and end points. Let's say, for example, the most amount of delay mix you want is like 30. Right? So if you were to right click here and choose ranges, you can choose delay mix and say, okay, I want 30 to be the end point of where it goes. And then the lowest amount, let's say I want that to be at like 3 for argument's sake. And you can choose the delay mix, set that as a starting point. And now as I move this, the delay will only go as low as 3 and will scale only to 30. Right. With the knob tweak.
But the knob appears to go from 0 to 100.
Correct.
But the controls it's controlling are constrained.
Constrained, right.
Yeah, so you don't get some massive filter thing that's going to destroy your monitor.
And you can set those ranges from the handy range selection, or you can go into your edit control and type.
This is a hugely critical. When FXChange 2.0 came out, a lot of people said, this is awesome, but the thing that would really make it amazing was if it could do this.
Yeah.
And we recognized that, saw that, thought of it ourselves as well. But the customer feedback we always appreciate, and there we go. And now we've got the mod matrix.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's awesome.
Absolutely. So now that we've completely mangled this this guitar sound, not quite sure how it's going to sound, but check it out. Let's see what we've got. That's not horrible. So
some people go for guitar sounds like that.
Yeah,
so who knows?
Absolutely.
I think people get the point, though.
So if we bring the rest of the mix back in,
It's almost kind of like dubby.
yeah, it's kind of like a dub delay. Yeah. So we've gone from kind of the basic, pretty bad sounding thing into kind of the next phase, some sound design,
Yeah.
some production techniques.
Okay.
And so from here, you continue to flesh out
Yeah.
and work with the project. Now, I should also mention real quick, since we've been working with the browser is completely flexible. I mean, there's shortcuts. You can make it hide. You can hit B to make the browser go away. In fact, you can do the same thing with the inspector. I makes the inspector collapse and expand, and B for browser. Very logical and easy.
I just want to mention real quick,
Sure.
we're at about the hour. We're going to try not to go too much longer, but we are going to go over a little bit. I hope that's okay with everybody at home, all 500 and some of you. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll try to wrap
Probably
this
2 or
up.
3 hours, we should be done.
So in the browser as well, all these GUI elements like the browser. I mean, you can just tear the browser off. You can float it. You can dock it on the left side. You can tear it off and put it on another monitor if you had a separate monitor. You can just make it go away and disappear, or hit B again. It's going to come back and make this big giant browser, or collapse back.
Is any of that new in X1D, or that's inspector
No, that's
stuff?
just been in X1.
That's the B keyboard key cluster.
Yeah, but there are
Yeah.
we've got this concept of key clusters, right?
We made it better for
so
X1D.
with D, again, D for multi-dock, Shift D to resize it. So we've actually expanded the key clusters in X1D for the inspector. So I has always been able to expand and collapse the inspector, but now if you hit Shift I, you can show the clip properties in the inspector. Control Shift I shows and hides the track properties, and I believe it's Control I shows and hides the Pro channel.
Yeah, this was something I heard people ask for recently,
Yeah.
actually as it was being developed, and
Yeah.
and this takes the idea again of key clusters. I is the inspector,
Right.
but now you've got your same sort of modifiers that work in the other aspects of the program that now allow you to get to any aspect of the Pro channel.
Yeah, and
quickly.
we've taken those key clusters and added that functionality to the vStudio 700 with the X1D update. So, for example, if you hit Command EQ, now you can show and hide the Pro channel in the inspector right from the vStudio 700 console as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, so some pretty cool stuff that's made it into X1D all across the board. So that's kind of the first part of the demo. The next part is actually really quick, and it's just the other way of looking at some music production stuff. So I'm going to load up this other project we've got here. Now this is kind of a fully fleshed out project. This is a pretty hefty project. As you can see where my mouse is here on the right side of the screen, there's about a dozen soft synths in the project, Dimension Pros and Zeta 2s and stuff like that. There's a total, I think I counted up, it's like 67 Pro Channel modules altogether,
Yep.
a dozen synths, an additional 17 VST plugins, and it's a total of like 25 tracks and like a dozen buses
Yeah.
or something like that. So it's a pretty beefy project.
And the Pro channel's really efficient. That's one of
Yeah.
the things. Kind of some of the parameters for Pro channel modules is they have to be low latency, if no
Right.
latency,
Right.
and very efficient and sound great. So, and I think this is evidence of that.
Absolutely, and you can see up here at the top of the screen in the timeline. So this is completely arranged. There's like verses and choruses and all that stuff. I don't know. I've always found, how about you guys? I've always found the markers in here. I mean, they're very functional and very useful, but they're kind of be a little small. Sometimes slightly difficult to read. So I've kind of made this homemade little feature that I thought I'd share with you
It's
guys.
a cool little Seth tip.
Yeah, and I call this marker clips. So let's dive into that real quick. It's basically just a MIDI track here, just a regular old MIDI track with these with MIDI clips. And I've just created these MIDI clips and put a single note in. It doesn't matter which note because it's not going to trigger anything. The output of the MIDI track is actually set to a hardware output, my Octacapture, which isn't going anywhere. So it's not designed to trigger anything. It's just so that I can put clips in here. And what's cool is that if you, by default, this little separator view actually shows the line, but if you grab in here and mouse up, it's going to hide your MIDI note in this case, so that it just looks like a blank MIDI clip. And so I've got all these different MIDI clips here, and what I basically did is when you've got your clip inspector open, click on a clip and you can just instantly rename it. So I basically just renamed all these clips. You also have access to their colors. So I made like my middle 8 red, my chorus orange, doesn't really matter, but you can just click on it and choose a background color. If you don't like the default stuff, it's awesome. You can just click on other and you get this nice little like paint type window, which is cool. And you can click custom and you can, customize like darker or brighter. I kind of like the darker.
Verses feel
colors.
orange to me.
They do. There's something about verses that are just a nice cakewalk orange.
Yeah.
Now
that's a very cool way to use clips and colors and using the inspector to kind of lay out parts. I also noticed something we didn't mention that I'm used to now, but track selection.
Right.
When you select a track, it's much more visible. It's much more easily visible that we have sort of this bright blue that matches the rest of it. That was just a nice. It also matches the console as well.
Yeah.
So track selection is another thing in X1D. Very small thing, but again, it adds to the overall.
Yeah, it's just a little X1D nugget, definitely. Another cool thing too about the marker clips, is if you select the clip, it's actually going to select the time range and the timeline. So if maybe you want to copy and paste your verse a couple of times. This is actually what I did when I made this song. Just click on your verse marker clip and then select whatever tracks, maybe all of them. Just drag down, and now you can control copy, move stuff around, things like that. So it's kind of a cool little pseudo arrangement tool as well. So what we've got in this project, I'm just going to do a real quick performance, because again, we wanted to look at this as like some performance production. So what we've got in here are 2 instances of Zeta 2. And let me just open these up for you.
There's a question, can we change the color of markers? I don't believe we can.
No, and that's actually another reason why I like to use the marker clips, because you can change them up to be whatever you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, so 2 instances of Zeta 2. And this is basically our new version of Zeta. Zeta's always come with SONAR X1 Producer for a number of years now. This is a brand new version, sold separately. So it doesn't come with unless you buy the SONAR X1 Production Suite. It's a 6-part wavetable synth. It's got modular effects routing. It's got a built-in arpeggiator. Don't really have time to go too deep into this, but it sounds awesome. And what I'm doing is triggering 2 instances of it.
So somebody asked earlier how to stack VST synths.
And this is how you do it. So if you have multiple synths open, all you got to do is just click this input echo on the multiple synths, so they're both blue. They both stay blue no matter what track is selected.
And then to save that as a preset, a person would just have to select those tracks, right-click, say save as a track template, and now you've got a stack of synths that you can save as a track template whenever you want.
Select whatever you want to save. Yep, save as track template. And you could save this to whatever folder you want to, and then drag and drop that track template in from the browser at any time.
Super fun. I have a whole folder of just massive numbers of stacks and split synths.
And it can be any number of synths. You could have 5 synths, loaded on top of each other. So I've got these 2 synths bussed out to a bus here, routed to a bus here that I call my Zeta 2 synth lead bus. So what I'm going to do here is record MIDI from our 2 Zeta 2s, and then I'm also going to record some automation on the EQ that's built in the Pro channel on our Zeta 2 bus. Now, what I've got here in my EQ, I've kind of simulated like a filter. So I've got band 4 here set to be a shelf with like a nice peak in our G-type EQ. But what I'm going to do, this is actually really cool. You can group Pro channel controls within a module on most of the Pro channel modules. So if you right-click, for example, on this knob here, just add this. I've already had this group pre-made. I'm just going to add that to a group, and I'm going to take this low-pass filter and add that to a group, and then grab, and you can see now when I move the knob, they both move together. And I'm controlling this, by the way. This is ACT again. You guys were kind of asking about that before. That's just how easy it is. You click on your module, and you control it with your knob right away. And then I'm going to add this third high-pass filter here to the filter group as well, so they're all moving together. But I want to make this knob invert and go in a different direction. So I'm going to go open up our group manager. And you can set custom ranges. I believe what I want is this one. So I'm just going to swap the values there. There we go. So now that moves like that. Oh, I think I swapped the wrong one, actually. So let's go back and do
Live
this.
TV.
Live TV, indeed. There we go. There's the right one. So now it's inverting. So we got this kind of kind of a resonant filter that we've made out of the EQ. So just kind of a creative way of using the EQ. And again, we're armed for automation. So I'm going to record some automation from that. And then I've also got some clips here in my matrix view down in the multi-dock. I'm going to trigger those here from my dynamic pads on the A800. There's some one-shot samples I put in here. Stuff from movies.
It is catchy. What are you waiting?
So it's kind of a nice little built-in one-shot sampler. I've got some of these set to one-shot, some of them set to loop. You can have these sort of customized latched and unlatched settings.
And you've got your trigger set to immediate.
Right.
I find a lot of people, when I
Right.
see them use the matrix at first, I think it's set to measure by default.
Yep.
It just doesn't seem all that fun.
Right.
The key to really making the matrix a lot of fun is set it to immediate or a
Right.
low value. Keep your latency low and just jam.
Absolutely. So you can, stuff like
Yeah.
that. And what's cool too is you can also capture the performance from the matrix view to the track view. And that's what we're going to be doing in these two tracks up here. So MIDI here, matrix capturing here, automation down here in the bus. And then we're also going to see a waveform preview. We're not actually recording the audio, but it's going to be printing a temporary preview image of what the waveform will look like if we were to print it to audio. So let's make sure we got the right stuff open. We're armed to record, and let's see what happens. All right, thank you. So that is sort of a secondary way to produce, or maybe the primary way, depending on what you do. And you can see we've got the matrix view, the MIDI stuff, automation down here. You can shift click and select different automation, the waveform preview, and all that.
And all that was happening at the same. Let me turn my mic back on. All that was happening at the same time. So you're triggering your clips with some very clever finger positions there,
Right.
and got all your MIDI recorded that you were doing, and then all the cool, very cool automation that was going on, and you're doing that all at the same time,
All
and
in real
controlling
time,
lots
yeah.
of EQ parameters simultaneously.
Right.
So that's a lot of that. To do all that manually would have been probably very tedious and very boring
work.
for the folks at home.
Yeah, and so that's just a cool example of kind of how you can create music a lot of different ways live and just recording stuff, not just recording like one MIDI keyboard part at a time and then recording another, but just jumping in there, and Sonar can do all that.
Yeah, it's much more.
You can record automation, you can trigger clips and trigger MIDI, and all that stuff, sort of all at the same time, and record a performance and create.
It is a
song
much
after.
more musical and kind of intuitive way to do it,
Yeah.
and that's really part of the beauty of Sonar, I think, right? And
Absolutely.
you just demonstrated that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that sounded great.
So that's really that's what we've got for the demo. Any more questions we need to address?
I don't think so. I think we've got a lot. I think probably the big question is when is X1D coming out?
Indeed. When is it?
Never.
When is it
We're
coming
never
out?
giving it to you. No, it's, well, I'll tell them while you drink out of your mug. It's going to be the 29th of this month. That is the plan, unless anything changes, which I don't foresee currently. So not too much longer. Basically, we'll see it next week. So February 29th, I believe, is going to be the release date. Am I right on that?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think the 29th.
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, so that's when you'll get X1D. So people asking about crash recovery in X1D. I think crash recovery is already in SONAR for certain kinds of crashes. Yeah, if it can be caught, then it goes out. So if you do see that kind of thing, crash recovery is already there. I don't know if any changes have been made for
not for D.
For
I know
X1D.
in C we implemented the auto bake feature. It basically just recovers your dump file and sends it automatically to our servers in Boston and creates a bug report automatically in our internal bug tracking system, and then you can actually attach your email to it, which you get updates and stuff.
Right. And there's a blog on that.
Yeah.
We've all been blogging a lot lately. Check that out. No, the 29th is not the middle of February. That is true. But trust us, you don't probably want things before they're done. I think most people would prefer to have them ready.
Yeah.
So we'll take another week or so. Stability worked pretty good here so far. We went live without a net, and Seth performed, and everything seemed to work great. So we'll put it out there on the 29th, and hopefully everybody will be happy with that. Totally free. Things are flying here. Other questions. I don't know if they're actually questions or not. So we're getting it. It will be in February. So everybody jump in at the same time and try to download it simultaneously.
Absolutely.
We should be okay.
Test our servers.
So, and we're going to have a. By the way, so people asking about the M48, we've been using this to control our monitors. These things are great. We use them all the time. Roland Live Personal Mixer System. That's what that is. This is an Asus Transformer tablet. This is Seth. So we're also going to be doing this hopefully regularly from now on. So I think next month we're going to kind of switch places, and I'm going to sit there, and Seth's going to sit and bug me and play keys
get back at him while he does his
and impact my demo.
Absolutely.
And so we'll be doing that. We'll kind of switch places, and hopefully you guys can all join us for future webinars, and we hope to do this regularly. And thank you so much, everybody, from coming all around the world and staying up late and hanging out with us for a while. It's been fun for us.
Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye.
Bye.